Have you ever noticed how the tightest grip leaves the deepest marks? You hold on to people, outcomes, versions of yourself, clutching them like lifelines. You tell yourself it's love, it's loyalty, it's commitment. But late at night, when you're alone with your thoughts, you feel it. The exhaustion. The quiet suffocation of needing someone or something to make you feel whole. And then comes the question you've been avoiding. What would happen if I just let go? Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." But what he didn't say, what most people never understand, is that sometimes the most profound transformation comes not from holding on, but from the courage to release. To walk alone, not because you've given up on connection, but because you've finally chosen yourself. In today's video, we will walk through the 7 stages of what truly happens when you let go of attachment. Not the romanticized version you see in self-help books, but the raw, uncomfortable, ultimately liberating truth that Jung understood about the psyche's journey from dependence to sovereignty. Because it's in the moment you stop clinging to what's leaving that you discover what's been waiting inside you all along. The strength you thought you needed from others was yours the entire time. The first days after letting go feel like death. Not metaphorical death. Actual, visceral, physical death. You wake up and reach for your phone, forgetting for a moment that the person you used to text isn't there anymore. You start to speak, then remember there's no one to hear. The world doesn't feel bigger. It feels emptier, colder, like someone turned down the volume on your life. Jung called this the descent into the night sea journey, the dark passage where the ego must surrender its illusions before the self can emerge. When you let go of attachment, you're not just releasing a person or outcome. You're releasing the story you told yourself about who you are through them. The friend who made you feel interesting. The partner who made you feel desired. The dream that made you feel purposeful. Without these mirrors, you're forced to face a terrifying question. Who am I when no one is watching? Many believe this emptiness is proof they made a mistake, that letting go was wrong. But in truth, this void is not the end. It's the clearing. Jung understood that the psyche cannot grow in spaces already filled. The ego clings because it fears the unknown. But the unconscious knows better. It orchestrates loss, not to punish you, but to create the spaciousness necessary for your becoming. That hollow feeling in your chest? That's not absence. That's room. I once knew a man who spent 15 years in a marriage that had died long before the divorce papers. He told me he stayed because he couldn't imagine his life without her. Not because he loved her, he admitted, but because he didn't know how to be himself without the structure of us. When she finally left, he described it like falling through space with nothing to grab onto. For months, he wandered. Not literally, but psychologically. He would sit in restaurants alone, feeling like everyone was staring at him. He'd start hobbies and abandon them, looking for something to fill the void she left. Then one night, sitting in complete silence in his apartment, something shifted. I realized, he told me later, that I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of meeting the person I'd been hiding from for 15 years. Myself. He started small. Cooking meals he actually wanted to eat, not what she preferred. Taking walks without destination. Writing in journals he never intended to share. And slowly, the emptiness transformed. It wasn't a void anymore. It was a blank canvas. For the first time in his adult life, he wasn't performing for anyone. And in that solitude, he found something he'd been seeking in others his entire life: himself. Think of a tree in winter. To the untrained eye, it looks dead. Barren branches against gray sky, no leaves, no color, no obvious life. But beneath the surface, beneath the frozen ground, the roots are doing their deepest work. They're spreading, strengthening, preparing for spring. The tree doesn't mourn its lost leaves. It trusts the cycle. Humans are the same. When you let go and stand alone, you might look dormant to the outside world. But inside, in the quiet, in the solitude, your roots are finally free to grow in directions they couldn't when they were tangled with someone else's. The emptiness isn't death, it's winter. And winter is where the strongest growth happens, unseen. From a neuroscience perspective, attachment activates the brain's reward system. The ventral tegmental area releases dopamine when you're with the person you're attached to, creating a literal chemical dependence. When you let go, your brain goes through withdrawal, similar to quitting an addiction. The anterior cingulate cortex, the part that processes emotional pain, lights up as if you're experiencing physical injury. But here's what's profound. Within weeks of sustained separation, the brain begins to rewire. New neural pathways form. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for self-regulation and identity, becomes more active. You're not just healing from loss. You're literally rebuilding your sense of self at a neurological level. The pain isn't punishment, it's renovation. So when the emptiness comes, don't fill it with distractions. Sit with it. Let your nervous system recalibrate. Ask yourself, what am I learning about who I am when I'm not trying to be enough for someone else? The answer won't come immediately, but it will come. And when it does, you'll realize the person you were trying to hold onto was keeping you from the person you were always meant to become. The emptiness doesn't last forever. It can't. Nature abhors a vacuum. And here's what nobody tells you about letting go. Once you stop clinging, once you stop forcing, once you genuinely release your grip, something extraordinary happens. You start to notice things you were too distracted to see before. After you let go, there's a phase Jung would recognize as the emergence of the authentic self. The persona, that mask you wore to maintain relationships and meet expectations, begins to crack. And underneath, something truer appears. Perhaps less performative, but undeniably real. You stop saying yes when you mean no. You stop laughing at jokes that aren't funny. You stop contorting yourself into shapes that fit other people's needs. This is when the real loneliness hits. Not the physical kind, where you miss having someone beside you, but the existential kind, where you realize how long you've been a stranger to yourself. How many years you spent being who you thought you should be instead of who you are. It's disorienting, like learning to walk again after decades of crawling. But it's also when the magic begins. Because when you're no longer performing, no longer managing someone else's emotions or needs, you have energy. Vast reserves of it. Energy you forgot existed because you were using it all to maintain connections that required you to be less than whole. A woman once shared her story with me. She had been the caretaker in every relationship, the therapist friend, the patient partner, the selfless daughter. She defined herself by her usefulness to others. When her longest friendship ended, a friendship where she'd given everything and received scraps, she felt like she'd lost her purpose. But in the months that followed, something unexpected happened. She started painting again, something she'd abandoned in college because her ex said it was a waste of time. She took a solo trip to Iceland, something she'd always wanted but never suggested because her friends preferred beach vacations. She started saying no to invitations that felt obligatory rather than genuine. One day, she told me, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. Not in a bad way. I looked more alive than I had in years. I realized I'd been living my life in the passenger seat, letting other people drive. Letting go wasn't about losing them. It was about finding the steering wheel. She wasn't the same person anymore. And that's the point. The version of you that needed that attachment couldn't survive without it. But the version that emerges after you let go, that version doesn't need anyone to complete them. They choose connection from wholeness, not from lack. Consider the story of the phoenix. Everyone focuses on the rising, the rebirth, the triumphant emergence from ashes. but they forget the burning. The phoenix doesn't carefully preserve itself. It doesn't negotiate with the flames or try to save pieces of its old form. It surrenders completely to the fire. Only through total dissolution can the new form emerge. Your attachments are the old feathers, and letting go is the fire. It will hurt. It will feel like destruction. But what rises from those ashes isn't a restored version of who you were. It's who you were always capable of becoming, freed from the weight of what no longer serves you. When you walk alone, genuinely alone, not as a punishment but as a choice, the world doesn't shrink. It expands, because you're no longer filtering every experience through the lens of how it affects someone else. You're not thinking, would they like this restaurant? Would they approve of this decision? Would they understand why this matters to me? If you've ever felt the weight of attachment, of needing someone or something to feel complete, leave one word in the comments: released. Because naming it is the first step to freeing yourself from it. You start making choices based on what calls to you, not what's convenient for maintaining a relationship. You take the job in another city. You pursue the degree everyone said was impractical. You say the truth even when it's uncomfortable. And slowly you realize, this is what freedom feels like. Not the absence of love, the presence of self. Here's what letting go reveals. You are not half of something waiting to be completed. You are not a supporting character in someone else's story. You are the whole thing, the main character, the author, the story itself. Attachment made you forget that. It convinced you that you needed someone else to validate your existence, to give your life meaning, to make you feel real. But walking alone shows you the truth Jung spent his life trying to teach. The self, the totalized psyche, cannot emerge while the ego is fused with another. Individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, requires separation. Not from all connection, but from the desperate clinging that masquerades as connection. The paradox is this: only when you can stand alone do you become capable of genuine intimacy. Because you're no longer seeking someone to save you. You're no longer afraid that if they leave, you'll disappear. You know who you are in the silence. And from that place of self-knowledge, you can meet another whole person without losing yourself in them. I spoke with a therapist who specializes in attachment, and she told me something that changed how I understood relationships. She said, healthy love isn't about two halves making a whole. It's about two whole people choosing to walk in the same direction. When you let go of attachment, you're not rejecting love. You're rejecting the idea that love means dissolving your boundaries to merge with another person. She works with clients who've spent years in codependent relationships, people who can't remember the last time they made a decision without considering how it would affect their partner. And the hardest part of healing, she said, isn't the breakup. It's convincing them that being alone isn't a failure, that choosing themselves isn't selfish, that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. One of her clients, a man in his 40s, said something that stayed with her. After a year of being single for the first time since his 20s, he told her, "I used to think loneliness was the worst feeling in the world. Now I realize what was worse was being in a room full of people and still feeling unknown. Walking alone taught me that solitude and loneliness aren't the same thing. Solitude is where I finally met myself. That's the shift. Loneliness is the ache of feeling disconnected from others. Solitude is the peace of being connected to yourself. And you can't experience true solitude while you're attached. Because attachment keeps you externally focused, constantly monitoring the other person's mood, needs, responses. There's no bandwidth left for your own inner world. Think of a river that's been dammed. The water backs up, becomes stagnant, loses its life force. But when the dam breaks, when the river is released, it remembers how to flow. It carves new paths. It moves with power and purpose. It becomes what it was always meant to be. Your attachments are the dam, and letting go is the breaking. At first, it feels chaotic, destructive, but then the flow returns. Your energy, your creativity, your authentic desires, all the parts of you that were blocked, they start moving again. You remember what you wanted before you learned to want what others needed from you. Research on emotional regulation shows that people who can self-soothe, who don't rely on external validation for their emotional state, have significantly lower cortisol levels and higher baseline happiness. They're not happier because nothing bad happens to them. They're happier because their well-being isn't dependent on variables they can't control, like other people's behavior. When you let go of attachment, you're developing what psychologists call secure autonomy. You can weather emotional storms without needing someone else to rescue you. You can celebrate victories without needing someone else to validate them. Your emotional stability comes from within, which paradoxically makes you more capable of healthy external connections. So the question isn't whether you can survive letting go. You can. The question is, are you willing to meet the person you become when you're no longer hiding behind attachments? Because that person, the one waiting in the solitude, is more powerful than any version of you that needed someone else to feel whole. Letting go teaches you to trust yourself in ways attachment never could. When you're attached, you're constantly seeking reassurance. Does this person still love me? Am I still valuable? Am I doing enough? Your sense of self is outsourced. Every interaction becomes a referendum on your worth. But when you walk alone, there's no one to reassure you except yourself. And at first, that's terrifying. Because what if you're not enough? What if the voice in your head that's been whispering your inadequacy all these years is right? But then something unexpected happens. You start proving that voice wrong. You face a challenge alone and survive it. You make a difficult decision without consensus and it works out. You feel sad and sit with the sadness instead of running to someone to fix it, and the sadness passes. Each small act of self-reliance rewrites your internal narrative. You're no longer the person who needs saving. You're the person who saves themselves. Jung wrote extensively about the confrontation with the shadow, the parts of ourselves we've disowned or hidden. Attachment is often a way to avoid this confrontation. If you're focused on someone else, on maintaining their approval, on managing the relationship, you don't have to look at your own darkness, your own fears, your own unhealed wounds. But when you let go, when you're alone with yourself, the shadow appears, and you can't ignore it anymore. The jealousy you pretended you didn't feel, the anger you swallowed to keep peace, the parts of yourself you edited out to be more lovable, they all surface. And this is the real work of individuation. You can't become whole by rejecting parts of yourself. You become whole by integrating them, by looking at your shadow and saying, yes, this is also me. The needy part, the angry part, the scared part. And I don't need to hide these anymore. I don't need someone else's love to make them acceptable. I can hold all of myself with compassion. A man I met at a workshop shared that his divorce forced him to confront his shadow. He'd always been the nice guy, the one who never made waves, who always accommodated his wife's preferences. But underneath, he was resentful, exhausted, quietly furious. He'd suppressed these feelings for years because he thought they made him a bad person. In therapy after the divorce, he learned to sit with his anger instead of pushing it away, to acknowledge his resentment without judgment. And something profound happened. Once he stopped fighting his shadow, once he accepted it as part of his wholeness, it lost its power over him. He wasn't controlled by unconscious resentment anymore. He could choose how to respond. He told me walking alone saved my life. Not because I learned to be happy by myself, though I did, but because I learned I could trust myself with all of my feelings, even the ugly ones. I didn't need someone else to make me good. I could be good and angry, good and imperfect, good and whole. Picture a sword being forged. The steel is heated until it glows, then hammered, then plunged into cold water. Over and over. Heat, pressure, shock. It's violent, brutal, but necessary, because only through this process does the metal become strong enough to hold an edge. Soft steel bends. Tempered steel endures. Letting go is the forge. The heat is the pain of separation. The hammer is the daily choice to stand alone. The cold water is the shock of seeing yourself clearly without the distortion of attachment. And what emerges isn't the fragile person who needed others to feel whole. It's someone tempered, unbreakable, sovereign. This doesn't mean you become cold or closed off. It means you become solid, reliable to yourself. When future connections come, and they will, you won't dissolve into them. You'll remain yourself while still opening your heart, because you've learned the difference between intimacy and enmeshment, between love and need, between choosing someone and clinging to them. The people who've truly let go have a different energy. You can feel it when you're around them. They're not performing, not seeking approval, not scanning your face for signs of judgment. They're just present, grounded, at peace with themselves in a way that makes you feel at peace too. They don't overshare to create false intimacy. They don't people please to avoid conflict. They don't need you to complete them. And paradoxically, this makes them magnetic, because we're all starving for interactions with people who aren't trying to take something from us, who are just fully themselves, offering connection without agenda. That's what happens when you walk alone long enough. You stop performing and start being. And being, it turns out, is what everyone's been looking for all along. Not the polished version you present to win approval. The real, whole, sometimes messy, always authentic you. There's a final stage of letting go that most people never reach because they refill the emptiness too quickly. They rush into new relationships, new projects, new distractions before the transformation completes. But if you stay in the solitude long enough, if you resist the urge to attach to something new, you arrive at what Jung called the integration of the self. This is where the fragmented parts of you, the parts you scattered across different relationships and roles, come home. You're no longer the version you were with your ex, or the version you were with your family, or the version you perform at work. You're just you, consistent, integrated. And from this place, something miraculous happens. You stop needing life to go a certain way. You stop white-knuckling outcomes. You stop attaching to specific people or achievements to feel okay. Because you found the only thing that was ever going to make you feel okay, yourself. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care from a place of fullness rather than fear. You love people not because you need them, but because you choose them. You pursue dreams not because you need them to validate you, but because they genuinely call to you. You're not grasping anymore. You're flowing. If you've made it this far in the video, if these words are resonating in your chest like a bell, hit the like button. Not for the algorithm, though that helps, but as a signal to yourself, as a commitment that you're ready to walk this path, that you're done clinging, done shrinking, done outsourcing your wholeness. And here's what you'll discover on the other side of attachment. Freedom isn't the absence of connection. Freedom is the presence of choice. When you can stand alone, truly alone, every relationship becomes a choice rather than a need. Every connection becomes an enhancement rather than a requirement. And that changes everything. The world looks different when you're walking alone by choice rather than by circumstance. The same empty apartment that felt like a prison becomes a sanctuary. The same Friday night alone that felt like failure becomes an opportunity. The same silence that felt heavy becomes spacious. Because you're not filling it with someone else's voice anymore. You're listening to your own. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But he also knew that becoming requires unbecoming. You can't evolve into your wholeness while carrying the weight of attachments that require you to be partial. You can't discover who you are while you're busy being what someone else needs. So you let go, not because you're giving up on love, but because you're finally choosing yourself with the same devotion you used to give everyone else. And that act, that radical act of self-selection, is what changes everything. Because you can't give from an empty cup, and you've been empty for so long, pouring yourself out to keep others full. Walking alone refills you, slowly at first, a few drops, then a trickle, then a stream, until one day you look down and realize you're overflowing, not with the borrowed happiness that comes from someone else's approval, but with the deep, unshakable contentment that comes from knowing yourself completely and choosing yourself anyway. This is what happens when you let go of attachment. You don't lose yourself. You find yourself. You don't become incapable of love. You become capable of true love, the kind that doesn't consume or control. The kind that sees another whole person and says, I choose to walk beside you, not because I need you, but because I want to. And wanting, it turns out, is so much more powerful than needing, because one can coexist with wholeness. But need, real desperate need, requires emptiness. And you're done being empty. You're done having yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. You're done performing to earn what should be freely given. If this video has awakened something in your heart, if you're starting to see that the thing you feared most, being alone, might actually be your liberation, share it. Send it to the friend who's still clinging. Post it for the stranger who needs permission to let go. Because maybe your share will be the synchronicity that saves someone from years of suffering they don't need to endure. And if you're ready to keep walking this path, to keep doing the deep inner work of individuation and shadow integration, subscribe. Because this journey has just begun. The journey of becoming whole. The journey of learning to stand alone so powerfully that when you choose to stand with someone, it's from sovereignty, not scarcity. Jung once said, loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. But I'd add this, sometimes the most important thing you need to communicate is to yourself. And you can't hear your own voice while you're listening for someone else's approval. So walk alone, not forever, not as punishment, but long enough to remember who you are when no one's watching. Long enough to rebuild your relationship with yourself. Long enough to discover that the person you've been searching for in others, the one who understands you completely, who loves you unconditionally, who sees your worth without needing proof, that person has been waiting inside you all along. You were never incomplete. You were never half of something. You were always whole. Attachment just convinced you otherwise. And letting go, painful as it is, brutal as it feels, is how you remember the truth. You don't need anyone to complete you. You just need the courage to stop abandoning yourself. And when you finally choose yourself, when you finally stand alone without apology or fear, you'll realize this isn't the end of your story. This is where your story actually begins. The story of you, undiluted, undiminished, finally, completely, beautifully free. Walk alone, not because you have to, but because you deserve to meet the person you become when you're not trying to be enough for someone else. That person is worth knowing. That person has been waiting your entire life. And it's time to go home to yourself.